Good morning, everybody. How is everybody? Give me one moment while I walk up here. A little bit of a different broadcast this morning. All right, so for all of you who don't know, my name is Michael Bartley. I'm the resident volunteer here at HeartLight. Tim and David are still on their much needed and well-deserved vacation, so I will be filling in today for Wednesday's class. As you all know, we've been going through the Gene Davis book on upgrading our 3D body, getting more self-knowledge, and today we're kind of going to jump ahead into nutrition. Now, for those of you who have the supplement, the yellow book, that is page 53, and the large book, it's 116. You're welcome to read it if you want. However, today I'd just like to kind of offer a different perspective on all of that. Gene Davis really believes in raw food veganism. That's the only way you can really maintain health and, truly be healthy, not just physically and spiritually, but I'd like to offer another perspective. As many of you know, I've been an executive chef for 20 years, and I have a master's degree in nutrition and food sciences with a emphasis in holistic nutrition. So I would just like to start off with food is an excellent source for change. Okay? Everything we eat can affect us physically, mentally, and spiritually, and food can change our appearance, health, vibration, and emotions. Our physical body needs fuel, food, sun, the air we breathe. And sometimes our body is just treated well with just fasting. Because sometimes when we want less, we just have more. So I want you to think about that for a moment. Fasting can be great for the soul, and it develops things like self-awareness and self-mastery. And it makes the spirit the master of our own soul. I wanted to talk about not just the foods we eat, but how we eat them. And I'm not saying how we eat them, utensils or any of that stuff, or if they're cooked or raw or whatever. It's really just a sense of being grateful and being present. Now, we were all, most of us with a religious background, we would say grace before a meal, thinking whatever higher source it was. But I'd like to expand on that. Being truly grateful for it. Are we thanking the plant or animal that is on our plate? All the people and processes involved in bringing it to our plate. But not just that, thanking Mother Earth for providing the environment for which something could be fed and brought to us. And that's really where we talk about how food can really start changing our vibration. When this book was written in the mid-'80s, that was kind of the start of the big diet craze. Mid-'80s, every, diet supplements coming out, whether it was a pill or a bar or a shake or, I think Slim Fast was having its heyday at that point, and it was all about processed foods. And that's when our nutrition just went down the tubes, because the emphasis was more about sacrifice and deprivation instead of just eating good, fresh food. You know, I've never heard anyone say, you know, and I have my Slim Fast Shake and I'm completely satisfied. You know? But if they had, you know, a nice meal in front of a fresh lean meat or fatty meat, I mean, whatever it is you enjoy to eat, you know, a good amount of nice vegetables, some fruit and all that stuff, and it's like, wow, okay, that was really a great meal. And it wasn't processed. Your body appreciates you for it because, I mean, you're eating what's provided by the earth, what's provided by the sun, what is provided by nature. And that's really what it all should be about, because we're all nature, we're all light, we're all love, and all of those things coexist with each other and really should in our nutrition, okay? And so when I talk about things like changing our vibration, you know, foods like, you know, green leafy vegetables, legumes, even some spices, fresh herbs, fruits, berries, all of these are just bursting with energy. So it's like figuratively like eating the sun. You know, the sun's just this huge, massive ball of energy. And if we're eating energy, we are energy. You know, when we eat horribly, when we're going to eat our candy or our cookies, or, you know, I need my Dunkin' Donuts in the morning or whatever, we all just start kind of feeling bad. You know, oh, I need a nap now. I need this, I need that. And we feel deprived, okay? And, you know, I talked a minute ago about diet being about deprivation. And it really is. That word diet, I mean, that's probably one of the worst 4-letter words there could be out there. Because it is about deprivation. You know, and there are people who, and think about diets. You know, you have your low-carb diets, your ketos, your raw food vegan in the case of Gene Davis, vegetarian, whatever it is. You know, and there's all these different diets, and every single one of them have to do with what are you taking out, instead of what are you receiving and what are you giving yourself. Nutrition is all about balance, okay? And I understand, you know, there are people who may have underlying medical conditions that may cause them, you know, not to be able to eat certain things. I mean, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I really have to watch my carbohydrate intake. That being said, carbohydrates are fuel and you need them. You know, you can't deprive yourself of them. You just have to be mindful about what kind of carbohydrates you're eating. And that's where those fresh foods, whole grains, legumes, and those types of things come in. A carbohydrate's not a Twinkie, you know. But that's kind of where we went to. The mentality has been for the longest time, especially now with the organic food craze coming in, you know, oh, I should really be eating this organic apple, but I can't get an organic apple. So instead of going just to a conventional apple, we jump for the box of donuts. You know, it's like, well, no, just go for the apple. You know, right, right, an apple Danish, great example. You know, we go for what's convenient. You know, when food became a convenience and shelf-stable, that's when the problem started. So, again, back to diets being about deprivation. Nutrition is really just about balance and giving it exactly what it's needing. And I would get the question a lot of, well, I don't know what my body needs. How do I know what my body needs? You know, I'm looking at charts of things. I don't know that I need some vitamin B. I don't know that I need some iron. You know, I just know I'm supposed to be having these things, but how do I know that I'm not having enough? And it just comes down to a very simple process of listening to your body. Okay? So many times, especially in all of our spiritual journeys, we're taught to talk to spirit, we're taught to search for things, but very little we're taught to listen. And that's where that consciousness comes in, okay? There'll be times where I'll sit there and it's like, okay, I just want a salad. That's just what sounds good to me. And there's times where it's like, okay, I'm eating that burger, you know? And that's just my body telling me what it needs at that point. That's what cravings are. It's not an unhealthy thing. It's not a guilty pleasure. It's not any of that stuff. It's just our body talking to us, you know? Food should be enjoyable. It's one of our simplest pleasures in life, but so many times we eat out of guilt. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just ate that, you know, or I'm going to have this and I really shouldn't. So when we talk about raising our vibration, you know, be grateful that you're having those things right now. You're in a better frame of mind, a better state of consciousness, and then your body receives that differently, processes it better, processes it for good. Instead of treating something like a punishment, think of it as a reward. And it's just that change in perspective that can change so many things. And I'm not just talking about food at that point. I mean, just everything. A little background on myself. You know, I used to completely eat out of guilt and ate horribly. I tried practically everything out there was to try. In the last 6 months, I have lost 92 pounds. Okay? And it all really just came down to diet. You know, I make myself a fresh green juice every morning. I eat nothing but, you know, fresh, whole foods. Do I have some ice cream or, you know, some cookies or something every so often? Absolutely. They're a reward, but I don't treat them as something out of guilt, or I don't eat out of, you know, oh, I'm depressed. Give me that pint of Ben and Jerry's. You know, I don't look for it as a soothing type thing. You know, it's, yeah, and, you know, it's just really, really about raising that consciousness. It's about feeling better about everything. And if we feel good about what we're putting in, we have nothing but love and light to put out. So, you know, we talked about the feeling grateful briefly. And, you know, when I talk about that, you know, the whole things on the plate, how it all came to us, even the people who prepared it for us or just brought it to the table or whatever, you know, that phrase we all like to use a lot, that it takes a village. Yeah, right. I mean, it takes a village to do all of this for all of us, and I'm not sure that many of us truly look at it that way. But I will say, since I started to, it's really changed my perspective and how, I mean, I'm a chef, I like my food, but I really enjoy my food now. But it's not a enjoyment out of like a gluttony type thing. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm enjoying it. And when you do that, you also enjoy the company you're around sharing a meal with more. Or you may want to share more meals with people because of that and share that experience. You know, all that stuff spreads like wildfire, just like negativity does. You know, that change of perspective, you know, can change everyone, and it does take a village. Does anyone have any questions about any of this so far? Dorothy?
Say it again. Michael, I saying anytime you want to cook, we'll partake of it. We'll be part of your village of appreciation.
Okay. Well, we have done that on several occasions, and we'll continue doing so. Yes.
Have you found also, Michael, that as we age, we should change our eating habits, or not should, but with me, I know I found out that I eat differently than when I was 15 or 16 or even 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. 60?
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a great question. And I'll say that really your eating habits so much didn't have to change, but your activity level sure did. And there's the difference.
Say that again.
The activity level you had has changed more
Oh,
than that. So that's what's caused you to change a lot of your eating habits. And I'm going to use the example of the people in Okinawa. Okay, they have the largest concentration of centenarians in the entire world. Okay, and they are eating exactly what I'm talking about right now: fresh vegetables, fresh meats, fish, legumes, all kinds of stuff. But they're still very, very much active. They walk, they're gardening, they're out in the sun, they're very much active in their communities. And if you walked around, I mean, you would see someone who says they're 104 years old and they don't look a day over 60. So, I mean, there's something to say for that.
Michael.
Yes,
I
Bonnie.
wanted to know about the emphasis of sugar, because I was in Food Addicts in Recovery,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the main source of everybody's problem is sugar and processed flour, which turns into sugar.
Absolutely. So, I'll go into that. When we're talking about sugars and stuff, mainly we're talking about white sugar, processed sugar, or corn syrups, or any of those types of things. It's all processed foods. Now, there are things we have that are naturally sweet, fruits. Sweet potatoes are a great thing. And now there's, agave is a wonderful sweetener. Even natural maple syrup. Things that occur in, honey is fantastic. And honey has great anti-inflammatory properties to it as well. In fact, something about honey is I used to be very allergic to eucalyptus and was told by a holistic doctor, you need to be eating some eucalyptus honey. And my thought was, well, if I'm allergic to this, I'm eating it. Isn't that a bad thing? I started adding that into my green tea and everything. I have zero issue with eucalyptus, and it's just how my body processed that and built its natural immunities to those types of things. So, I mean, what we eat, can change a lot of these types of things, such as, mild things like an allergy to, major disease. I mean, there's research showing that, just increasing your vitamin C has helped out people fight cancer. There's studies showing that like high dose vitamin C can actually cure cancer. And we can go into a bunch of that stuff. Excellent foods to eat. Eating 2 servings of cabbage a week can reduce your risk of colon cancer by almost 50%. Red or green, it doesn't matter, because it's the fiber that's in there. Either one. And that was a good question, raw or cooked. And a lot of that, and I'll dive into a little more detail about raw versus cooked here in a minute. And we all hear about, these superfoods that are great for us, our berries, especially blueberries, we hear a lot of. Well, You hear about fermented foods, how great they are, especially for gut health and all of that. And then I jumped back into this book when the diet craze was big, with Gene Davis, and one of the main reasons why our nutrition went down wasn't just because of the use of processed foods for all of these diet foods, but it was also because we were missing a very simple element in all of our diets, and that was fat. So because we took fat out, we now added sugar to make it taste better. Our body needs fat. We just need it. If you look, next time you go to a grocery store, look at a container of milk and look at the sugar content between whole milk and non-fat milk. It'll blow your mind. There's a great video on TED Talks with the British chef Jamie Oliver. And he talks about the sugar that's consumed just in the 2 cartons of milk that a child will get every day at school. And he starts showing some sugar cubes and stuff. And it's like, oh, here's what they get in a day. Here's what they get for a month. And at one point, he dumps an entire wheelbarrow of sugar cubes out on stage onto a blanket and says that's what they get in one school year, just from those 2 milks. A carton of milk is usually about 6 ounces. So, reading labels, especially in this day and age, is important because, almost everything we get now comes out of a package. Unless we're just purely buying from a farmer's market or direct from a farm or whatever. If you have the opportunity to get some fresh milk, whether it be cow, goat, whatever, everything is coming out of a package. So read them. It's very important. Yes, Rhonda.
I think it's horrifying to be finding out that in natural apples, and you can't read a label about this or anything else, but they're adding sugar, and grapes, like those cotton candy grapes, those actually are tweaked in the way they graft them together or whatever, the plants, to put more sugar, more sweetness in it so that those apples, those grapes sell over the other ones because they're so much sweeter. And so the nutrition is literally being washed out of even natural food.
Yeah. And another example of that, and I'll use the school lunches as an example, for about 3 years in the U.S. school food system, they were serving apples, but they called them graples. And it was, it's like having 2 fruits in one. But what they were doing was injecting these apples with so much grape juice that these apples had 6 times the amount of sugar that a regular apple did. So, we have been so busy depriving our bodies of the simplest of things that we've had to add all of these horrible things into it just to feel pleasure from what we eat. And it just doesn't need to be that way, nor should it be. So I'd like to move, Shireen, to your question of cooked versus raw, okay? And there are times where either are fine and both are incredibly appropriate, and I think there's times where you want cooked or you want raw. Now, obviously, if you're eating grains or a legume like, beans or whatever, you want those cooked because who wants to crunch on dried rice, dried beans, any of that stuff? No one wants to do that. And then I would say a lot of times it depends on how you cook it. We all grew up in generations where we had, that parent or grandparent or whatever, and the only way they cooked vegetables was boiling it till whatever was in the pot was gray. And then you had this wonderful, like orange or green water sitting in that pot, and that was like all your nutrition just sitting there in the water. You've been better off just drinking the pot, what was in the pot, instead of eating the mush that was on the plate. So my recommendations when you are cooking your vegetables is do things like roasting or steaming or a quick saute. You know, using fats like olive oils. Avocado oil is wonderful. Coconut oil is the new, I guess, craze in fats, but it is a saturated fat. So, you know, watch it. You know, and there's nothing wrong with butter, people. I don't know where everyone all of a sudden decided butter was awful for you and then went to margarine. But if you look at the ingredients in margarine, you're better off eating the plastic container it came in. And you truly are. Okay? So, you know, have some butter. Have lots of butter. Butter is delicious. It's just the 3 secrets to French cooking were butter, butter, and more butter. You know, as Julia Child would say, you know. So enjoy it. It's just milk fat, people. Yeah, and like I said, we need fat in our diet. One, it makes things taste delicious. Fat transfers flavors, okay? So actually, a lot of times when people are reaching for extra salt and they're reaching for extra seasonings, and it's mainly salt, it's because there's not really any fat in what it is they're eating. So it has no way to get around and make those saliva glands work and move those flavors around. So we reach for more salt. And as we all know, more salt leads to high blood pressure, which leads to a whole other set of health issues. Throw a little fat in there. You know, another thing that I love adding to a lot of stuff just to get some flavor in there, a little vinegar or some type of lemon juice or orange juice or citrus, like a squeeze of lime or anything. Anything that gets those saliva glands working. We mainly put salt in our food, 1, to flavor, but 2, to get our saliva glands working. You know, if you think about salty foods, or if you think about just tasting a little salt, immediately, you know, your mouth is just watering. You know, we can get that with so many other ways, such as, you know, our fats, acids, especially acids, are great for that. And a lot better for you. Especially those acids, they'll help thin out your blood. They're a natural blood thinner. Lemon's probably one of the best blood thinners you can have. You know, instead of reaching for, you know, the bottle of ranch dressing for your salad, you know, throw a little herbs on there, a little lemon juice, olive oil. That's delicious. In fact, that's how most other countries eat, except Western countries. We like our processed foods, mainly because we're the ones who make them. You know, I guess we're supporting our economy that way, but there's just better out there, okay? I kind of wanted to jump into a little bit of spiritual nutrition in the way of nourishing our chakras and certain foods we can eat for that. You know, we talk about that a lot. We definitely talk about it a lot with Soma Energetics. And we do mention it here. But, you know, we'll hear David a lot of times talk about, oh, well, that's a root chakra thing, you know, that, you know. And so there are foods that we can eat, like, and what's amazing about this is these colors that are correlated with our chakras are actually correlated with those foods as well. So our very grounding foods for our root chakra are our red foods, such as, you know, meat, beets, which is something we don't eat often enough anymore. I love them, but you don't see them often much anymore. It used to be on the plate all the time, and now it's very rarely, unless it's, you know, canned or pickled, but roasted beets are delicious. Strawberries, cherries, whether they're a dark sweet cherry or even sour cherries, are delicious. And keep in mind there too, these could also be all dried fruits too. So your grape could be a raisin. You know, dried cherries, you know, freeze-dried strawberries I don't know if you've ever had those. It's just a strawberry that's been freeze dried, so they're crunchy, kind of like a chip. So now you satisfy that crunch too sometimes. So maybe grab that instead of the bag of Lay's potato chips. And then you get in your second chakra, and that's your orange foods. Your salmon, your sweet potatoes, papaya, yams. All of those things. And they'll give you feelings of being desired or desirable. I mean, they're just, all of these things just continue to raise your vibration as we go up, into our yellow foods like corn, squashes, and all that stuff. And we keep moving up and up and up. They're just really, really great things that we could be eating, all naturally. To not, like I said, just improve our physical health, but our spiritual as well. I mean, it's all really, really connected.
What about the crown chakra and white foods?
That's a very good question. And no, it's not. It's not, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Your white foods are things like parsnips, white asparagus, fish. Fish is especially good for your brain, especially your blood-brain barrier. Ceremonial substances like cacao, kava, wine and bread, But then you also have these sacred herbs like sage or lemongrass, rosemary, all of those very awakening fragrances and flavors is all wonderful for that. That's a great question, Shireen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about any of this right now? Any thoughts? No. I just wanted to kind of touch on all of that. I mean, I can if you'd like, and I can also print these out for those of you here. There's nothing wrong with eating those things. I see no problems in eating pasta. I mean, even as a type 1 diabetic, I eat pasta. Again, everything in moderation. I mean, if you think about what pasta is, it's wheat and eggs. Now there's certain pastas that are like really overly processed that probably aren't as good for you. You can make your own, but they do make pastas that are just flour and egg. Look at your ingredients. Now, a lot of pastas now have added sugars in them. Or it'll be enriched flour. Enriched is a word you should stay away from, okay? Enriched usually means we've taken everything out of it and then we've coated it with something else. Enriched white rice is the one you see probably the most often. We've taken brown rice, stripped the outside hull of it, and then we've washed it 900 times. And, there's no nutrition in it. So now we're going to cover it in this almost talcum kind of looking powder and call it enriched. Okay? So, I mean, and it's just recent. And this information is all out there. I mean, it's not hard to find. Most of the time, it's even on the package of what you're eating. Just most people don't read. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan of rice. I mean, my favorite foods are Asian foods, and they eat more rice than all of us combined, and they have some of the healthiest, not just physical bodies, but spiritual bodies are out there with all the Eastern religion and everything. But, again, it's how they eat. It's the types of things they're eating along with it, Again, it's about balance. So there's nothing wrong, really. I guess what I'm saying is there's nothing really wrong with any type of food, as long as you're mindful of how much of it you're eating. You know, like I said, me being a diabetic, I'll have some ice cream, but I'll keep that in mind as my day progresses. Or if I know, hey, I want some ice cream tonight, I'll keep that in mind as I'm eating through the day, you know. And that's just that self-awareness of it, you know. If I had, you know, a burger for lunch, you know, with a big bun and everything on it and some French fries, you know, I'm obviously not going to be hitting the carb wagon at dinner, you know. So it's just being mindful of all of it. And it takes planning ahead, and sometimes that's the last thing we want to do is, you know, think about the next meal and we don't plan ahead anymore, really. It's like, oh, well, what sounds good? Well, I don't know. You know, and then that, you know, we wait and we wait and we wait and we try and come to a decision, and that's when we make our poor decisions. You know? Same as when we go, and we all do this, and we've all said it at some point, going to the grocery store hungry. What a horrible thing to do. Because then you're fulfilling those cravings in the worst possible way. And then you leave the grocery store, it's like, and you bring it home, and you say, man, I still have nothing to eat because I bought a bunch of junk because that's what I was fulfilling at that point. You know, so it's just that mindfulness. Microphone. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
What is the best time to eat certain foods or meals? I just like the Europeans see their most important meal is lunchtime, or between 12 and 2 or 12 and 3.
Okay. I tend not to stick to actual times because everyone's schedule is different. I mean, if you don't wake up till noon, you know, obviously that's not the best time to have your biggest, you know, look at, but I would say most of the time, your middle meal of the day should be your largest meal, okay? That being said, too, you also shouldn't eat and go straight to bed. Your body needs time to process. And I see people holding up 2 hours and stuff. I would say closer to 4, if you could, yeah. It takes your body on average anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to process the food you just ate. And if you go to sleep, your body is now storing that food instead of processing it. You know, and a lot of times we do a lot of weight gain by eating and going to sleep. Whether it's a whole meal or, you know, that's when I'm having my sweets or my, you know, midnight snack or whatever it is, you know. And those are also the times we make our worst decisions. So, you know, try and be, you know, again, mindful and aware of that type of stuff. You know, I hear, you'll always hear breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And I think it's important to have something. Breakfast should almost always have some protein in it. And so many times it doesn't, because now, you know, with breakfast cereals and it's quick and easy, you know, that's what it's become. And the only protein you're getting is out of that little splash of milk that you may have put in it. Yeah. Peanut butter is a great source of protein. Any nut butters are great for that, you know. I mean, and I say any nut butters just with the peanut allergy being so prevalent now. With so many people. And just a little tidbit about that peanut allergy, they actually now realize that it's not really a peanut allergy. It's actually a vitamin deficiency coming from our soil. They've actually taken people who have been allergic to peanuts and fed them organically grown peanuts in that controlled environment with all the nutrients that were originally in our soil, and not a single person had an allergic reaction. That was more of a body reacting to a deficiency than an allergy.
I'm on the sugar added again with, you know, almost every peanut butter and most nut butters have added sugar. And so but they taste so much more like the nut, or in the case of a peanut, which is not a nut, it's a legume, tastes more like the natural thing if you find it without the sugar instead of with the sugar, making it sweeter. So you get, to his point, you get a lot more satisfaction out of a teaspoon of that than a great big tablespoon of the sugary one.
So, and what I would recommend is, especially when it comes to things like nut butters, you can go to places like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, even Harris Teeter. Your local grocery stores will have all natural ones. And a lot of times what I'll do now is, if you have something like a food processor or a Vitamix or something like that, make your own. Throw some nuts in your blender, add a little bit of a nice neutral oil, whether, it's a sunflower oil or whatever, try and stay away from vegetable, cottonseed, those types of things, Add a little bit of honey to it if you want a little bit of sweetness. And you have a fantastic nut butter it's 3 ingredients. If you look at the back of most jars of peanut butter, there's 20 plus ingredients in it. That should be a red flag, and especially when it's something like peanut butter and peanuts aren't even in the first 5 ingredients.
If you go somewhere like Whole Foods, you can just, if you go somewhere like Whole Foods, you can just grind it yourself.
Absolutely. I was going to mention that.
Nothing but nuts.
Right. So yeah, Whole Foods, and that's, what I was going to say. Whole Foods has those options. I believe Earth Fare locally does as well, where you can just walk up, throw your nuts in there, and make it yourself. And it's great. And a lot of them will even already have it done for you to where you didn't have to do it. They'll have it in little to-go containers and stuff for you. And nut butters are a great way to get some protein. It doesn't have to be spread on a piece of bread. A lot of times I'll a snack and just a couple of spoonfuls of that stuff, and I'm happy as can be. So, thank you. Anyone else? Anything? Oh, Maggie?
This is a little different. I believe that our bodies, our digestive system needs a rest once in a while. And so a lot of people tell me I'm too old to be fasting, but I only do like a 3-day fast because it takes 2 days to get all the all the food out of your body. And then the 3rd day, it cleanses your organs. So should I be concerned about doing like a 3-day?
I really wouldn't be. Like I said before, a fast is very cleansing. It allows your body to reset itself. But the biggest thing that it allows us to do is cleanse our liver. Our liver stores almost everything we put into our body. Whether it's, sugars or, alcohols, food, whatnot, your liver will store all of that. And fasting is just a chance to have a reset. Let your body get rid of those toxins and all of that stuff, because what's happening during fasting is your body is looking for something to eat. Okay? So it will eat whatever is available. And a lot of times that's when our liver releases those reserves, and that's what it's feeding on. So now we're getting rid of those. So no, I would not, I am by no means a medical professional, so I can't say that 3 days is good for you or too little or too much. Again, it goes with listening to your body. If 3 days you feel fine on 3 days, then 3 days seems to be your magic number. And any medical professional will tell you that as well. You might have a medical professional say 3 days is too much, 3 days is too little, whatever. But if you feel fine on 3 days, 3 days seems to be your magic number. Some people, they feel horrible after fasting for half of a day. Some people can go for a week. Everyone is different. And like I said, that's part of that consciousness of listening to your body, learning to listen, knowing what those warning signs may be. If you're feeling a little shaky, maybe your blood sugar's a little low. Grab a little snack, you know. If you're getting irritable, confused, you know, those types of things. You know, the one that people don't listen to so much, though, is when they're overeating. Does anyone here know what the number one side effect of overeating is? And it's not weight gain. No, it's not weight gain.
Lethargy.
Say that again?
Lethargy.
Lethargy. You're tired. You're tired. Your body is working so hard at keeping up with processing everything you've put into it that you've just worn it out. You've just worn it out. You know, so, you know, space things out. There's a rule that a lot of the Eastern cultures use when they're eating, and that's eat till you're 80% full. You know, 80% full, because 20 minutes later, you're going to be full. And we eat till we're stuffed. And then we feel miserable. Yeah.
I've noticed in the recent months as I'm eating that there's a little awareness. It's a small one that, oh, okay, I'm kind of satiated. Oh, okay. But I generally keep on eating because there's still food on my plate. And but I think, I think that that's kind of the 80% mark at that point, and either take that food home or let it go. If I can focus on knowing that it actually shows up, I'm surprised about that.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of us here, I think, are of an age that when we were children, it was clean your plate. And we
Absolutely.
still have that in our
So,
psyche.
can I offer a very simple solution to that? Okay? And it sounds, I don't know, almost stupid when you hear it. Like, why did I never think of that? Smaller plate. Because so if your mentality is to clear the plate and you have a big plate of food in front of you, have a smaller plate. You can only eat as much as that's on that is on that plate.
What's the best way to solve a craving?
Fulfilling that craving.
Yeah. What would be,
What kind of craving would you be thinking of?
well, sometimes I don't know, just like sometimes I'm just hungry and just want something, and then that's when you get into trouble.
My recommendation is just having some options ready to go.
To go, yeah.
You know, a lot of times, you know, a handful of nuts or trail mixes are great because now you get a little bit of dried fruits or something along with it as well. So it, like, you know, rounds out the nutrition a bit.
The latest trail mix I bought had
A lot of them will have chocolate in them
had
now.
chocolate in it.
Yes.
I thought, that was brilliant.
It is. Try and find them with dark chocolate.
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't think it was brilliant. I was just being facetious.
you know, but you know, I mean that's, you know, and you mentioned that, you know, the latest trail mix I had chocolate in it. Well, that's going into the whole, well, these people normally wouldn't eat it, but if I throw a bunch of sugar in it, they'll grab it. It's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
It's a marketing thing. You know, so I mean, I look for sweetness in them by having dried fruits
Well, I
in
like
it.
nuts. I keep nuts on the counter, almonds and walnuts.
And those are great for you. Great for you, especially walnuts. The amount of selenium that's in them helps out with things, cancer fighting capabilities and everything in them as well. So people don't talk about walnuts enough. I mean, we've all talked about, almonds and how wonderful those are. And walnuts kind of got pushed to the wayside, but walnuts are absolutely wonderful for you. So,
So think that a little bit of roasting on your nuts brings out so much flavor. You don't have to put any salt or any of those kind of things, but just a little bit of roasting in the oven, a few minutes, and it gives them a little more crunch, and it really pops up the flavor.
or even just dry toasting them in a pan real quick. If you don't want to preheat your oven or anything, just turn on your skillet and just throw some nuts in there, and when you start to smell them, they're done. So it's a quick, easy way to do that. So, and I'll be David. Where does my time go? So we're going to end a little early tonight, today, just because of certain things we have to do. But I would like to end with two things, and one, we'll just do a quick prayer. Mother, Father, God, thank you for the opportunity to share this time and experience with all of you, and I'm grateful to all of you who shared it with me. We wish Tim and David well as they continue their long-needed and well-deserved vacation, and we wish everyone well and offer healing thoughts of pure light and love to all of those in need. I'd like to end with this thought. I was sitting down last week thinking about what it was I wanted to talk about in this class. At first, we weren't even going to do this. We were just going to continue with what we were talking about in the Gene Davis book and kind of have an open discussion. And I was approached by a few people to talk about this, to offer that different perspective in nutrition and everything. And I was happy to do so. And so I wrote this down last week. I just want to leave you with it to give you something to think about, okay? Food is an excellent tool for change. Our physical bodies need fuel, like food, sunlight, the air we breathe, and there are times when the physical body is best served by fasting. Food can raise or lower vibration as needed, and every bite of food with conscious awareness can alter our physical and spiritual self, affecting our relationship with every aspect of being alive. We can assist and co-create in healing ourselves, interpersonal relationships, family systems, society, nations, and the world. But it all starts with one simple conscious bite. As we consume the world, we tell the world what kind of tomorrow world we wish to live in. And so to finish out our prayer, I would like to ask that we get granted that opportunity to take our conscious bite and to be given the wisdom to be able to recognize it when we do. And so it is. Thank you, everybody, for today. It was truly a pleasure. Thank you to those of you joining us online. We'll prepare for our offering, and I will finish out my duties back here in the sound booth. Thank you again to everybody.